Defining power and influence is tricky enough. Placing an order on how that power is wielded is a really tough ask. But that was the challenge we set ourselves when we compiled the Formula E Power List, which is presented by Neon. For this video, we are just looking at the top 10 on the list, so for the countdown of the full 25 names, check out our article on the race website or have a listen to the Power List podcast. You can find links to both of those in the description of this video. We've examined all areas of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship to create this list, ensuring that areas such as sustainability and legacy are assessed alongside the more traditional facets of sporting and technical influence. Of course, all rankings are subjective, so if you have a compelling argument for or against these placings and inclusions, please let us know in the comments below. The FIA's big new recruit, Xavier Lompinon, is well known to the Formula E paddock, having been in it from the second season onwards as performance director at DS. He's had a long and successful career behind him at the former PSA group, which was swallowed up by the Stellantis behemoth earlier this year. But there is much more to this poacher-turned-gamekeeper scenario, with XMP having taken over the role vacated by a semi-retired Gilles Simon. The technical power will be crucial in ensuring that not only does the Formula E technical roadmap stay on course and have flexibility at the same time, but that an overarching EV motorsport direction is formed for the coming vital decades for the sport and for mobility in general. Frederick Bertrand has been an ever-present in Formula E since day one, first as the director for FIA Circuit Championships and now the director of innovative sport activities. He's well versed in both motorsport business development and how the industry works after a decade working for Renault Sport and then 2 years with the PSA group. He's now almost a decade into his work at the FIA and is a trusted director of President Jean Todt. Bertrand has the tricky balancing act of trying to embrace Formula E's desire for new and experimental sporting rules while appeasing the FIA's desire for sporting rigour and legitimacy. An automotive industry big hitter since he joined Renault in 2012, Thierry Ballard is still less than a year into his CEO role at Jaguar Land Rover, but has already made several marks. None more so than the so-called reimagined epoch-defining all-electric program announced earlier this year, which aims to achieve zero tailpipe emissions by 2036 and net zero status across supply chain, operators and products by 2039. This preceded a commitment to Formula E's Gen 3 technical rules and a statement of cross-team continuity with the extension of the technical partnership with Williams Advanced Engineering and the re-signing of driver Mitch Evans. Ballard won't be a regular visitor to the paddock, but he is the man who signed off on Jaguar's immediate global racing future in Formula E. Carlos Tavares is one of the higher profile automotive kingpins, but crucially he is a huge racing fan and occasional competitor. But that doesn't mean he will sanction racing at any cost, and the multiple brands encompassed in the newly arranged Stellantis melding of PSA and FCA will have to make commercial and branding sense. DS has enjoyed enormous success in Formula E and it will continue for Gen 3, but rumours of a second brand coming in, probably Maserati, are still just that. Tavares will ultimately have the final say, and while he is not a paddock regular, having last attended a race at Paris in 2018, he will always be involved in the big motorsport decisions taken by Stellantis. Through his close relationship with Alejandro Agag, Toto Wolff was instrumental in bringing Mercedes into Formula E back in 2017. He's a director of the holding company of the Mercedes EQ squad and attends as many races as his commitments in Formula 1 will allow. The day-to-day management has been undertaken with slick aplomb by Ian James, but Wolff holds the power and has overall responsibility for the programme. But despite success on the track, there has been something of a dark cloud hovering over Mercedes' Gen 3 commitment, largely thanks to the Daimler board for many months now. This is all set to be resolved shortly, but it might well be one battle that Wolff ultimately doesn't come out on top of. Should that be the case, then the lifeboats for a plan B could be a fascinating plot twist. Remarkably, Fritz Enzinger has only been at Porsche since 2011, when he headed up the phenomenal 919 LMP1 hybrid program. Prior to that, he had a 14-year career at BMW, where he was one of the pioneers of the BMW F1 engine program. Since that time, he has risen through the ranks of Porsche to become Vice President of Motorsport, which he holds as a dual role with a similar one at Volkswagen. He has formed a strong team around the Formula E project, which is yet to win, but the relatively early commitment to Gen 3 shows the Stuttgart mark is in this for the long run. Quiet Swede Björn Rosengren joined ABB to fill Ulrich Spiesshofer's role in 2019 after a long corporate career at mineral engineering company Sandvik AB. ABB's commitment to Formula E was a long one from the start, but the renewal of the deal in 2019 ensures a fruitful partnership for both sides. The ABB FIA Formula E World Championship is a showcase for the Swedish-Swiss company as it markets its self-styled mantra of transforming society and industry to achieve a more productive, sustainable future. ABB revels in its ability to advance software to its electrification, automation, robotics and motion portfolio, and in the Gen 3 era it will be an integral part of the technical and sporting structure, as it will be a key supplier of the planned fast charging infrastructure. Certainly on a day-to-day basis, this former Manchester United FC and LA Rams NFL commercial high achiever is the most powerful person in Formula E, especially in terms of shaping its future and monetizing it properly. That was largely Jamie Reigel's remit when he was tasked with becoming the first CEO after Alejandro Agag. While many said this was an impossible act to follow, Reigel has never pretended otherwise, and through the autumn of 2019 and the early stages of 2020, he set to work with zeal in shaping his own team. This had its ups and downs, with an initial on-then-off recruitment of the Premier League's wheel brass in February 2020, followed by a bruising communications department plan that went seriously awry earlier this year. Reigel has often struggled to effectively share his vision with many of the teams, which has been a source of frustration during his leadership. But during an early reign that has been fractured by the mother and father of all unforeseen circumstances in the form of the COVID-19 pandemic, there appears to still be some faith from board members in Reigel's concept for him to be the man to take Formula E into its crucial third age in 2023. Alberto Longo's mind-boggling ability to explore uncharted waters amid the pandemic, and how it almost wiped out two of Formula E's calendars, was and still is remarkable. A talismanic figure on the sporting, event operations and city developments level, Longo is immensely popular most of the time with the teams and manufacturers, and holds sway with politicians. A lot of this is definitely a rub from Agag, with whom he has grown up and developed various projects stretching back to the mid-1990s, when he cut his business teeth as an investment advisor in Santander Private Banking. A trained lawyer, Longo has a sharpness and a manner similar to Agag, but together they created arguably the 21st century's most successful and future-focused motorsport startup. It's not all been plain sailing though. The early days were tough, and the whole thing was within days of imploding late in 2014. It said much for the Agag and Longo axis that they survived and then thrived, yet still hold sway with seemingly effortless power deployment throughout the paddock and beyond it. When Alejandro Agag stepped down from his day-to-day CEO role at the end of 2018, few believed that he would phase himself out entirely to focus on his new Extreme E project, and so it proved. While his chairmanship enabled him to still be influential, in a sense it all occurred naturally anyway. The truth of the matter is that as long as Agag has a pass to get into any given paddock, he won't just be the conductor, he'll be the whole orchestra as well. Even in the present season, Agag has shown in his own non-subtle but curiously engaging way that he can reach the whole paddock and beyond it simply via a TV camera. This came after the first Puebla race, when a self-confessed rage at the perceived injustice of Porsche and Pascal Wehrlein losing a maiden win had to be confronted. In an interview that lasted less than a minute, Agag addressed the topic, apologised to fans, and also contributed to the drama in a dynamic way in one fell swoop. There in front of you was classic Agag, someone who could, just by will of charisma and personality, take control of a complex situation. So while Agag's headspace is engaged predominantly with Extreme E at the moment, he still has more than just an eye on his greatest professional achievement. Those are the 10 most powerful people in Formula E. Remember to check out the full power list presented by Neom on the race website. Have a listen to the podcast and let us know in the comments under this video who would make your top 10.